Hello everyone, welcome to Best Recipes with Sharon. Let's do another great recipe together. This recipe is for lemon meringue pie, and it's completely homemade. This filling is just the right amount of sweetness versus tardiness, and then it's piled high with meringue on top. And this is not your ordinary meringue. It really holds its shape well, and then on the very top, where sometimes if the pie sits for a bit you get little wet beads, this doesn't happen with this meringue. And because the filling and the meringue are so well put together, you're less apt to get a soggy bottom as well. So alright, let's get started with making this pie. So this is going to be made with the flaky pie crust recipe, and this is on one of my previous videos. So of course you'll need to start with a pre-baked pie crust. So once you have that ready, today's recipe is about the filling and the meringue that will go in that pie crust. So a little bit of prep time. Start by grating the rind of 2 lemons, and use the fine grater so that it's not too coarse, and set aside the zest for when you're ready to use it. And we will need the lemon juice from the fresh lemons as well. So I just cut them in half and I juice them like this, and you should get about a half a cup of juice. If you don't quite have enough, then you can top it up with the lemon juice from the bottle, but the fresh juice works the best. And you'll need 4 eggs. They need to be at room temperature. So if they're in the fridge, take them out and put them in a dish with a little bit of warm water to warm them up for about half an hour. They need to be at room temperature. So just take and separate the yolks from the whites, and be very careful that you don't break the yolk into the egg whites because it won't beat up properly for you. That's why I'm doing it with my hands, to make sure there's no sharp edges. Now set aside those egg whites and yolks, and let's move on to making the lemon filling. So take 2 1/4 cups of cold water and pour it into a nice sized saucepan. Add 1 cup of white sugar and half a cup of cornstarch. Also 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now stir this together quite well while it's still cold. And you'll need a whisk because you need to whisk it quite briskly while it's heating up over medium heat. And the reason for this is so that it doesn't go lumpy on you. You want it nice and smooth. And this will take quite a few minutes before it starts to thicken, but once it does, it will thicken very quickly. And once it starts to thicken, I remove it from the heat and continue whisking until it's nice and smooth. Then you take some of this mixture and put it into a separate bowl. This is going to be cooled off quickly and mixed with your egg yolks, and then put back into the rest of the mixture. So I take this little bit that I have in a bowl and I place it on top of some ice cubes so that it will cool off. You need it cooled off just enough that when you add it to the egg yolks, it doesn't start to cook them and cause lumps. So this will cool down fairly quickly, enough that it's about lukewarm temperature, and you can add the egg yolks together with this. So you can take the egg yolk mixture now and add it back to the pot where the hot mixture is in. And you can stir that together and add half a cup of fresh lemon juice now. Then add the zest from your 2 lemons. And once again stir that until it's well combined. Then add 3 tablespoons of butter. And once the butter's all added in, stir it in really well. Let it cool off a little bit, and then pour it into your baked pie shell. Now this is looking like it's thickening up quite well, and the color is nice and bright yellow. And it has such a nice lemony smell to it too. Now let me show you a few little secrets on how to make really awesome meringue. Take a separate saucepan and add half a cup of cold water. Then add 2 teaspoons of sugar to that. And finally 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. And once again we'll put this on over medium heat and start it heating up until it thickens. I'm using a small spatula type spoon and stirring it very briskly. And once again, when it starts to thicken, remove it from the heat quickly. Continue stirring until it thickens and it's nice and smooth like this. Then take and place this in a pan of cool water to cool off quickly for you. Now back to the 4 egg whites that you have separated in a separate bowl, and whip them until they become frothy. Then add a pinch of salt. Now half a teaspoon of vanilla. Add 4 tablespoons of sugar, a little bit at a time, beating in between each addition. And only beat until soft peaks form. Now add your sugar and water mixture once it has cooled off, and beat until stiff peaks form. Now take the meringue and pile it on top of your pie. And spread that out nice and evenly, and then take your spoon and make it look like it's got a few little peaks. That's just to make it look nice. And you preheat your oven to 400 degrees. Then place that in the oven for about 12 minutes or until it's nicely golden on top. So this looks like it's browned up actually quite nicely. So let this cool off until it's completely cold. And like most cream pies, it needs to set for quite a few hours if you want your pie to hold together nicely. So make this up ahead, even as much as a day ahead. You can cut it and serve it right away, but it won't hold together quite as nicely as you see here. This is a day after, and you can see it's not soggy on the bottom, there's no moisture or water on the bottom, and the meringue is holding together, there's no beads on top, and it's been in the fridge for a day. And this meringue is actually very tasty. It doesn't have that chemical taste that some of the other meringues do. Now if you like lemon pie, you have to try this recipe. It's that good. Thanks so much for joining me today, and happy eating.